biological and radiological materials to the environment that we can't clean up. And we even know when we have the directive to clean up, and I want to make this loud and clear, when we have the Army regulations in place to clean up environmental contamination and provide the medical care as signed by, repeat, as signed by General Chief of Staff Eric Shinseki, now Secretary of the VA, then we can understand he didn't enforce his own regulations and directives for medical care and everything. His predecessor was General Peake, who also signed an order mandating medical care for all DU and to clean up, and it was never done. And so now we have a catastrophic effect all the way through. And the VA problems are not there. I mean, at the Danville, Indiana VA Medical Center where I went to, I literally had my appointments canceled. I literally had stuff rescheduled. You'd miss an appointment, not because of you, because they cancel it. You're put at the back of the queue, so you wait a month or 2 months for an appointment. In physical therapy, we had a guy named Van Heusen was literally deleting the appointments and the physician's directives to lower the caseload because they didn't have the resources. That happened to me personally. And then the whistleblowers that blow the whistle are fired. Well, now it's all coming out. Isn't it wonderful?
Doug, why couldn't the VA start using civilian hospitals, civilian doctors to help with the overload of the veterans who were coming back home?
Well, first off, you've got to get continuing medical education so you have everybody to understand what they need to treat. The majority, 95% of the casualties, and we're looking from Desert Storm now, well over 400,000 are still seeking medical care. Way over 100,000 have died since we came back. And that's totally acknowledged in the VA reports that people say they don't exist. And we're looking at over 1 million. I mean, it acknowledges in today's report way over 1 million from Operation Iraqi Freedom are seeking medical care. They're not wounded in action. These people are exposed to incredible toxins. And even though the internal VA documents totally confirm the health effects from all these exposures, the VA leaders don't give it to their physicians. The civilian physicians haven't got a clue what's going on. And nobody listens to the vet when they come back. And this is where Private First Class Aaron Barnes of Canton, Illinois, said, I was exposed. And the VA said, no, you weren't. It didn't happen. Wait a minute. I know I was, and I'm dying. Will you take care of me? No, we're not going to take care of you. And he died. When his mother called me a week ago Friday, she was in tears. Doug, you were the DU expert. You wrote the regulations. You set up the medical care. They hung medals all over if you do it. What can I do to save other kids like my son is dead now from denial?
God.
You know how that hurts? And General Shinseki personally signed the medical order. He signed the order mandating the environmental remediation. He signed the order mandating the training. So as you know, I wrote all of that for him. And then he just went away. And now the kids are dying all over. And it's not just from DU. It's the immunization. It's the pesticide misuse. It's Agent Orange. It's all of the chemicals, all the stuff that was released when we destroyed the infrastructure. It's everything under the sun. And it's a toxic land. And now we wonder, why do we have so many cancers and respiratory problems? What we saw from Desert Storm was the tip of the iceberg, and you and I talked about it years ago.
Yeah.
You had incredibly healthy individuals amongst an extraordinarily strong and healthy cohort group. They went to Desert Storm, just like they did for Operation Iraqi Freedom, Enduring Freedom, New Dawn, the same in the Balkans. Within months, these guys came back with the physiological health of a 60 and a 70 and 80-year-old, and they were extraordinarily healthy in their 20s. And now they're all dying, and the VA plays games because they don't want to cover it.
So here you've got General Shinseki, who was singing one song as he gave you directions to follow, and now that he's the top dog, the instructions that he wanted followed haven't been followed, and so many people are dying. Who, in your opinion, Doug, who should be responsible for what's going on today? Is it the President of the United States, or is it the Secretary of Veteran Affairs?
All of the above. You got the President of the United States is responsible because I know he was totally briefed because I briefed him personally. We went through Congressman Tim Johnson, 15th District of Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
We put all the briefing papers together. I talked to his staff. I met with him and filled him in personally one-on-one, standing 2 feet apart when he was a U.S. Senator in Illinois. We did the same thing, Congressman Dennis Kucinich. God bless Dennis Kucinich. Great man. Christopher Shays, Bernie Sanders. The other day, Bernie Sanders, was grilling Shinseki at the Senate hearings on this stuff. Well, that hearing started at 10 o'clock Eastern Time. I got off the phone with Bernie Sanders' staff at 9:30 in the morning. We were on the phone for an hour trying to get this all across, because when we look at it, we look at the documents, the VA's own documents, like here in Illinois, in the central part of the United States, Vision 11, which is basically from Canada on down to Kentucky and across the whole midsection. And what they have the physician's guide that specifically outlines all the health problems and everything coming from all the exposures, everything connected with post-traumatic stress. PTSD is not a brain injury. It's not a mental illness. It's an ethical and moral crisis beyond comprehension that you killed and destroyed for no reason, and you were lied to and you did it. And now your brain can't rationalize what you know and what you were raised and all of the Christian Judeo-ethics that you were brought up with, and you ignored all that. So the poor guy's there. And then what happens as it's proven all over and comes out more and more by the hour, medical care has been deliberately and willfully delayed, denied, and ineffective. A sick kid runs a gambit, and he runs out of time. The families run out of time. And I'm tired of all of these kids committing suicide because they are abandoned. And after they commit suicide, or we have to intervene to prevent the suicide.
Doug, you and I have to take a commercial break with the news, my friend. Something's got to be done, Doug. You and your fellow soldiers deserve a hell of a lot more than what you're getting. And it's up to the American public to make sure...
The Canadian public.
And the Canadian public to make sure that this is done, that those responsible pay for it, that you and any other soldier gets the care that they need without delay. This is a crime against humanity in my books. Dr. Doug Rokke is my special guest, X-Zone Nation. We'll be back on the other side of this commercial break as we continue from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Oh my gosh, what a topic. We talk about government conspiracy, government cover-ups. We talk about everything on this show. We've moved mountains before. It's about time we start moving another mountain in Washington. My name's Rob McConnell. This is the X-Zone. We'll be back. Don't go away. Are you considering calling a psychic to read your situation? Then consider David Champion, a psychic medium for more than 20 years with thousands of readings under his belt. David Champion will make you feel comfortable. He has proven to be honest and accurate. He's a straight shooter. There's no guesswork. What he sees is what you get. While he is a medium, most of the calls focus on relationships, not only love, but work, school, neighbors, and more. Need help with finding a job and preparing for the interview? Are you dealing with people who are obstacles in your path? For more information, go to davidchampion.com, $1.50 per minute paid by credit card with a minimum of 30 minutes. For your reading with David Champion, call 1-877-702-8598. That's 1-877-702-8598. Now you can dial in to listen to the X-Zone radio show from anywhere in the world with Rob McConnell 24/7, 365 by dialing 213-401-0080. That's 213-401-0080. If you have a mobile phone or landline, the X-Zone radio show with Rob McConnell is now at your beck and call at 213-401-0080. That's 213-401-0080, 24/7, 365.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Welcome back, everyone. Dr. Doug Rokke is our special guest. We're talking about the one hell of a mess that the Veterans Administration is in. And what really ticks me off is that you have men and women who volunteered to defend democracy, the freedom of the free world. They go to these different theaters. They're exposed to depleted uranium. They are under fire. There is chemical warfare. Not only the men and women who are over there fighting, but you've got the civilians. And here it is so many years later for some of them, days, months for others that are coming back and who are needing attention. And then we find out that the Veterans Administration is not doing their job. They're fudging the books. There's no other way to put it. Doug, what can happen tomorrow to change all this? There has to be a solution.
Well, it's very easy. In the United States, President Barack Obama issues a directive and says, "Thou will acknowledge and admit and recognize all the health effects of military operations, whether it be training, research, combat, or development." And in Canada, the Prime Minister will state the same thing. And the next thing they say, "Thou will, without hesitation, provide medical care to all the military personnel of both nations, all of their family members who got cross-contaminated, exposed, and they're now sick, and I'm tired of that coming through, all of their children." And then they have to come back, and all these contaminated installations like Snood Air Force Base here in Rantoul, Illinois. The same, you go out to the Hawaii stuff and all this areas out there. I mean, it's just a catastrophe. You get on down to Vieques, Puerto Rico, and state, "We will acknowledge the health effects of the environmental contamination we caused and now provide the medical care." And then we have to do continuing medical education to educate the military physicians and doctors and nurses and everybody else, do the same thing for civilians, and then maybe we'll get something done. But right now, they don't want to admit this, because when you and I were in college growing up in the 60s, okay, they had this better living through chemistry. Well, we now know better living through chemistry is slow death through chemistry. All the toxins we have in our life, all of the compounds, everything we use, everything that comes out of our building materials is causing horrific long-term health effects. That's where Alzheimer's came from. But now what we saw in the military personnel, an extremely healthy group that got all of this zapped on them acutely in a short period of time, and now they're sick already. And so our whole lifestyle has got to change, but the number one thing is, it comes down, it doesn't matter who's in charge in the VA, either in the United States or Canada, because when the Canadian report came out a few months ago or a year ago, they disavowed it and just went along right with it, because Colonel Ken Scott and all the guys are not going to change anything, because if Canada acknowledges it, the U.S. has. If the U.S. does, Canada has to. And so the two are tied together, and the same thing with England. When I testified before the Ministry of Defense over there, and I've testified in Parliament, and both in the House of Lords and the House of Commons, we laid it all out, and they disregarded it. And that's what's happening. So the President and the Prime Ministers of both nations, and now we got Australia, the United States, Canada, Great Britain, Germany, those are ones who are in the middle of all this, and Israel, obviously. They have to make the decision to acknowledge what they've done, admit responsibility, and then give medical care to everybody. They don't need to have another study. We know what happened. It's in all the reports. We know what medical care is needed, and if we don't need it, then we find out real fast. But what it is destroy the document, don't give the document to the guy, don't admit what the health effects are, and therefore they walk away. For example, the Vision 11, this covers most central,